stuff like this, I'm warning you. It's not inspiring, I know. I'm gonna get marked down for this, but this will probably be the most boring class. But I just want to warn you ahead of time. If you just like put the expectations real low. Okay. Anyway, oh boy, I actually said that on tape. All right. Hello. Okay, I've been playing the guessing game here because I still don't know everybody's names, and of course I have to say with the masks, it's still hard. Danaya?
No.
Priyanka? I'm sorry, Priyanka. Okay. All right. Anyway, what I like to do is actually kind of like actually showcase people's work a little bit as like a way to kind of like maybe show what works and maybe what doesn't, or maybe what needs improvement. Okay. One problem I have is I have a little bit of a lack of filter. Okay. If you noticed it already. Okay, here we go. Ronnie.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay. So anyway, like I was saying, I have a little bit of a lack of filter, and I don't know, kind of this is like kind of a little bit of old school, call it boomer, I don't know, whatever. Actually, Gen X or whatever. I'm just saying that it's like kind of this is kind of like how I learned is having somebody speak directly, you know, and making sure that like you know where you stand, right? Every newspaper job I've ever had, every news job I've ever had, news site job I've ever had. And this actually goes with every industry, every business. Anyway, so I'm sorry. They have this kind of this evaluation system, you know, but I understand why they do it. They have to keep it legal, the whole thing. But I always thought when I would go into business, maybe you've seen this already. I always thought that, you know, if you screwed up, they would tell you right away, you know. Sorry, still don't know everybody's name. Amber, I'm sorry, Amber. So anyway, so I don't know. I have to actually really try to curb myself because I know that actually I mean it, and I know this sounds sarcastic. I mean a lot of love in the world. Okay, like tough love when I maybe like try to be straight with you in terms of my editing and that sort of thing. So anyway, so I probably have a little bit of a, so if you know, please, I'll try to like restrain myself as far as like, but whenever I like make comments on papers and things like that, it never comes from a place of anger or anything like that. Or even like mocking or any of that stuff. I have had a problem with a little bit with sarcasm, stuff like that. Okay. But you know, in the end, I mean, I see the end result of what everybody does, and it seems to work well. So I'll even tell you right now that I probably give out too many A's. From my perspective, I don't. But all right, so that's what we're shooting for here, right? It's a good grade and learning how to do it. Okay, so I actually did put up a new assignment already. I don't usually typically talk about the new assignment right away, but this is actually going to be an assignment that has nothing to do with like video or photography or that stuff. But the idea here is to really make sure that you write in a succinct manner, that your paragraphs, each one of them are sharp, this sort of thing. What I do is I usually download all the papers from Canvas, usually like on a Wednesday, you know, because I want to see like if there's any that returned in late. And I did like do a bit of a glimpse, and you know, we have 9 people in class. Probably half of them were pretty much on target in terms of like the style and that sort of thing, but kind of half of them weren't. So my assessment basically here is that it's like I got my first taste, and here's my prognosis. We need work. That's my filterless feedback. Okay. I mean, we're just starting here. Okay, so You could probably say that of any class. We always need work, okay? But we need to really kind of acclimate to this whole idea of like making sure that we're writing in this, which is typical news format nowadays, but in a digital, ready for the digital platform, okay? Making sure that our graphs or paragraphs, our writing is tight, you know, declarative sentences. I mean, it's really kind of odd and maybe even a little bit shallow to say this, but it's like appearance really does matter, okay? And again, you know, when you take a look at like a typical news story, like let's say I got a breaking news story right here. I hate this format they have right here. I really do. I'm gonna log in. That's the deal. That's nice. Whatever. Yeah, really something else. They bought Wordle, huh? And they're probably gonna put it behind a paywall. Wow, those greedy bastards. Anyway, well, let's just look at this. Okay, you see these two paragraphs right here. Okay, it's not quite as, it's actually just basically highlighting the key points of the story, but that is actually supposed to, you know, give you basically a sentence here, and basically that is actually, even when you're like kind of standing far away, supposed to get actually supposed to be appealing to you. It might not be something you actually consciously think, okay, or I consciously think myself, but the idea is that this is supposed to be inviting to you that, and what you're about to read is not complicated, okay? I'm just going to give you the news straight and short, okay? All right. Let's use a different one. I should post a better newspaper anyway. Oh boy. Yeah. I actually have subscriptions, but I just don't feel like signing in. I'll sign in. What the hell? All right, all right. Give me one sec. Hold on. There we go. Okay. No. They put a lot of space between graphs, but as you can see, I mean, especially the first paragraph, they really want to make sure that you're kind of hooked into the story, okay? And I mean, if you're looking at something that like is not very inviting, okay? I'm just going to see if I can pull up anything, okay? No. Let's just see if I can pull up. Actually, you know what I could do? What's not very inviting is basically that Titanic story that I showed you guys before, okay? You know, with really long graphs like that, and it's, you know, basically like written in a way that's like really kind of jumbled in the way they're posing what's happening, okay? Okay, so actually, does somebody have the textbook with them? You know, it's fine. Because people don't want to do that anymore. Put everything online, you know. Anyway, when you have like really long graphs like that, I mean, it's just like you just kind of just say like, oh, you know, why bother? And especially, but also as an employee, you know, as a reporter yourself, I mean, it's so much easier to actually like work with social media to basically have something that you can just easily extrapolate from here to here, okay? And again, the idea is to invite people to click, okay? All right, without being, as they call clickbait, which I think I explained about in one of my videos, but again, that's where you basically do like a bait and switch. Usually you see that in like the form of something like, this snowstorm is about to hit New Jersey. Here's how it will hurt you or something like that. You know, what's the problem with that, by the way? I've actually seen headlines like that. There's actually supposed to be snow this weekend, right? Was it Saturday or Sunday, maybe Monday? Okay, so let's see. This is what I used to do at Patch. Actually, being random. I don't mean to pick on my old newspaper here, but okay. And I like Nicole. Okay. Okay, so the idea with Patch is to be local. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a setup first, and then we can talk about like why that might be an issue. Okay, with that headline. I mean, I have to admit, I'm kind of borderline about it. I might even send it out myself. I don't know, but especially if I'm trying to like run a business. But I send out that headline, and I'm a news organization that basically is local first. Okay, what's the problem with that headline? Yeah, it's not local. And then like, what am I going to think? Like, let's say, where does it usually snow in New Jersey? I mean, like anywhere. Does it usually snow in the north or the south? Although lately we've had a couple of weird snowstorms, actually snow more in the south. That's essentially a northeaster. It comes to the north. It's north, okay? So it usually snows in the north, okay? So if I'm living in Cape May, right? You know, Cape May is at the very bottom of the state. And I look at that and say, like, oh my God, you know. And then I'm gonna click on it, okay? What's another issue with that, maybe? It says weekly forecast. Kind of leaves you guessing, doesn't it? Like, I just even asked you guys, I don't even know what day it's gonna be. So you have to actually like scroll down. All right. Morning commuters may want to build an extra time this week as forecasters are mounting. She's still leaving it dark. Okay. Below freezing temperatures on Wednesday night. Now, then Thursday night rain. Ah, finally, paragraph 3. Look, they got me all the way hooked into paragraph 3. Okay. You know, so that's one thing. That's where it goes a little bit of extreme, where you like leave out too many details. Okay. But what you really want to do is you really want to like, see, the problem with that is that if you have people click on that too many times and you're left empty, eventually what we had a lot, we had what they called churn. This was a churn rate. That basically was losing readers, losing subscribers. After a while, people aren't dumb. Well, many people aren't dumb. You basically have a situation where people just basically say, okay, I can't trust this source anymore. So, all right. But probably a good lead for this. So you really want to avoid that. You want to probably provide some sort of a balance. Okay, so maybe a good lead. It says morning commuters want to build an extra time later this week as forecasters are monitoring a storm system that could bring rain, ice, and snow to the Garden State. Okay, so what's maybe a way of actually like revising that lead so that actually like it's a well-written lead, but so that it's actually not so deceiving. What can we change in that?
Like specifically which morning.
Yes, exactly. So we have what we have later this week, Friday. Thank you. What else can we change?
Where in New Jersey?
Yeah. And you know, one simple way of doing that, so maybe like you kind of like stray into the clickbait area, but you don't necessarily go full head first in the clickbait area. You say parts of the Garden State. You know? And that's a way of making sure that you're establishing trust, that sort of thing. Okay. Kind of going a little bit on a tangent, but I just wanted to show that there are like actually like kind of like boundaries to this whole idea of like digital communication and you know, but you want to make sure you have a good sharp lead that basically tells people, And it is actually a good short read that is basically telling people what's going to happen and how they're going to impact it. Okay. It's not colorfully written or anything like that. It doesn't need to be because the substance always overrides everything else. Okay. All right. This Washington Post story right here, again, the whole idea is that it's more inviting. Okay. That's a bit of a long paragraph right there. I might not read that one, but probably like what they should have done was they should have actually, really, when you think about it, there's actually a psychology about this. It's actually been studied, that sort of thing. People tend to not want to read something that looks like a ramble. Okay. So anyway, actually, there was actually a whole newspaper that was developed because of that. And you may have heard of it, USA Today. USA Today was, I think, started in 1982. And what they did was they actually developed a study. It was based on a study where, back in the day when they actually had, well, they still do, but when they actually had they called the dead tree paper, they talked about how there's a top of the fold. Okay. One of the things they wanted to avoid was that they found that most people don't read stories that say continue to page A5. Okay. So almost every story on the front page stopped. Okay. It's just reading habits, They also found that basically people like color, they like graphics, and they also found that people also like short reads. Okay. And when they did studies about the web, they found that actually, it looks weird when you do it in a newspaper itself, the actual paper, but when you actually put it on the web itself, this is how people typically read. You like to have spaces between the paragraphs, okay? Usually keeping the sentences to keeping the paragraphs to 1 or 2 sentences, okay? President Biden said Thursday that a U.S. Special Operations Forces counterterrorism mission overnight in northwestern Syria had killed the leader of the Islamic State militant group. That's ISIS. 13 people were killed during the raid, including children. Okay. No U.S. casualties were reported in the operation, which left a U.S. helicopter destroyed on the ground. Last night in my direction, U.S. military forces in northwest Syria successfully undertook a counterterrorism operation to protect American people and our allies and make the world a safer place. 13 children are dead. Thanks to the skill and bravery of our armed forces, we have taken off the battlefield. Sorry, I can't pronounce the name. And then he would deliver open remarks later. Okay, and then it goes actually into some background here, I guess. The operation occurred amid growing concern over the resurgence of the Islamic State, which recently overran a prison in northeast Syria. It's not background from a long time ago, but it basically is stuff that led up to what happened now. Okay. All right. Anyway, back to the story itself. Okay. Oops, not that one. I'm sorry. All right. Anyway, and we need to get to the writing down, as we say here. We need work, and before we venture fully into the visual and the things such as photo and video. Although I was actually impressed with some of the photos I saw, and I'll talk about that. Okay. The sum here are some of the common issues I run through here. You need to stay focused on the same topic from top to the bottom. So, again, like the whole idea of actually kind of like, a lot of reporters, a lot of writers actually really feel tempted to put everything into a story, like put it all into a bowl, see what comes out. But actually, that's why they have things that they call, that's why they have systems where they actually require, I guess somebody is upset about the mix, where you do like a follow-up. Okay, that's basically where you have maybe like you want to maybe you want to go back to that person, you want to update them on what they're doing, that sort of thing. You see it right here with actually the Biden ISIS story. Obviously there's going to be a follow-up there, so you can add additional details, that sort of thing. Also, there's opportunities what they call a sidebar. Okay, and actually that's the big thing. That's where digital media really comes in to help, because if you have a situation where maybe you have a lot of things that you want to put into a story, but what it does is it actually just kind of clutters it up essentially, okay? And makes it a bit unfocused. You have opportunities to take that and extend that in other ways, okay? One of those ways is video, okay? All right, like if you're doing a story, let's say again, I keep bringing this one up. I've done this before. I've actually done this assignment, but I've had people do stories on Rutgers food and the quality of it and things like that. And I've had people basically they'll have like 5 interviews and there's one that's like really good, where they say like all these interesting things about themselves or something like that, and maybe it has something to do with the food. So what you do is then you go to the video and you have that person, the video just focus on that person himself, him or herself, okay? All right. And that way you can expand and provide more opportunity for content as you feel guilty about cutting, okay? All right. We'll get more into that, okay? But the main thing is you really got to make sure that you got to stay focused on the topic, because if you don't, what happens is that people basically will kind of lose interest because not all of their questions are going to be answered, okay, by that specific topic, okay? All right, anybody have any questions so far? Okay, so remember, this is not a creative writing class, so get rid of the glorious adjectives that do nothing but clutter up a story. I mean, adjectives really are like kind of like could be like almost the enemy to journalists or even writers in general, because it is, to me, like kind of like, and I'm not trying to call anybody lazy, but it's like kind of a lazy way of actually trying to paint a picture, or, actually one of the things I learned when I had a book writing course, which actually led to a book, but one of the things they really taught me was that, you have like metaphors, okay? Metaphors are actually dangerous because they're almost like adjectives. And what they do is, if you're going to have a metaphor or even an adjective, you got to make sure that it's factual, okay? All right. You got to make sure that it's actually something that's, it can't be disputed, okay? Like today, for instance, okay? If we're writing about today, we could call it an ugly morning, right? Or would that be appropriate to put into a news story? Probably not. What's another way to describe it that's factual? Where maybe you could use an adjective that would be factual. Buggy, rainy, gray. I mean, those words solve the problem, okay? So, yeah. You want to like limit yourself. I've had people basically say like, oh, so-and-so was walking out with the beautiful flowers and the blah, 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 and the majestic blue sky. It's like, oh, you ever read that stuff and just kind of like stop with the poetry, so, all right. But the substance is really what's important in the story more than anything, okay? Again, write in third person's voice throughout, okay? He, she, it, not first person, I, me, we. Paragraphs really need to be no more than 2 or 3 sentences, okay? And then it's full name on first reference, and then last name on second and future references. Okay, and then this one of the suggestions always been said to me. I used to almost kind of laugh at this when I was younger, but I was like, read out loud. People don't think I'm weird. But anyway, but actually, it actually makes sense. So actually, when you actually read out loud, you feel weird about it. Maybe go to a private place and so nobody's listening. Or maybe put in your earbuds or something like that, so it looks like you're talking to somebody or something. Anyway, so actually reading out loud again. The whole idea there is that. A news story actually is supposed to be conversational style almost, okay? So like you're giving news to somebody, like you're giving like gossip to somebody. So if you actually read it out loud, then you can actually tell, if it doesn't sound right when I speak it out loud, if it's hard to talk about, if I lose my breath because my sentence is so long, then I probably need to fix it, okay? All right. Oh, geez. I'm sorry, let me fix one thing here. Just ignore the stuff about extending deadlines because that's actually old talk. Anyway, so basically, like this story will be due on Canvas not story. This worksheet will be due on Canvas. Okay. Hold on one second. And I actually think it's actually really important to have an individual assignment that actually deals with the leads, because it is the most important part of a story. And again, the whole idea is that a lead, almost always the first paragraph of a story, can be extrapolated into maybe like a social media post or something. Okay. Anyway, there's always been a little bit of confusion about this assignment. Okay. All you need to do, and I'm actually going to read these and grade these. There's no visual element to this or anything like that. It's just all about the writing. Okay. I'm going to read these and grade these like I would read and grade a story. Okay. Just what you're going to do is you're going to take these pieces of information that are right here. Okay. And you're going to turn them into leads. Okay. Now you want to make sure of a couple things. Okay. One of the big, mistake that people have made when they've done this before, okay, is, yeah, maybe I mentioned this before, sorry if I'm repeating myself, is that there's a difference between a headline or a lead, okay, and a lead, all right? I've had people do this assignment before. They've written headlines. Some, not everybody, but some people have done that. Okay, so what does that mean? Okay, well, I'm not going to give away any answers here or anything like that, but let's look at this first thing right here. Okay, so you have essentially like a couple. You have, so basically, this is almost like what somebody would appear in somebody's notebook, like some of the notes they got from maybe some news that came in. Okay, the survey was released yesterday by the Child Abuse Prevention Center in Baltimore. The survey shows that 3 to 4 children die every day in the United States from child abuse and neglect. Statistics show that the number of child abuse and neglected cases reported at the end of this year rose to 2.7 million. So you have basically like kind of two choices almost of what you think may be like the most unique, important thing to focus on, okay? Or maybe the newest, almost like shocking news, okay? All right. You almost have to put yourself into like the shoes of the reader and what they think. So I would say you have a choice between that point and that point, okay? What you need to do though is actually have to take whatever you think is, and you is probably the most important, unique, and something that connects and relates to people, and just make a full sentence, okay, with a verb. Almost all stories, the information that comes out is usually in the past tense. So think about it, okay? I mean, when you're actually reporting news, it usually is something happened already, isn't it? This thing with Biden and the airstrike, you would say he struck Syria, okay? Past tense, all right? Here's the difference between that. One of the big difference between a lead and a headline is that they're almost always written in past tense. Well, most of the time. Sometimes there's things that are happening in the future, so I'll write about that. Or maybe there's things that are happening right now, so you use the present tense for that. The headlines are almost always written in the present tense. There's actually like a style for that, right? And it's called headline-ese. All right. It's almost like a whole different like thing in itself. Okay. And we're not going to be dealing with that right away, as I mentioned before. Okay. So they're almost always written in the present tense. And that's because the headline gods of a long time ago, for whatever reason, and I can't be honest with you, this was stuff that was probably devised in the Civil War era. Okay. Decided that actually headlines look better if they were written like as though action was happening. Okay. All right. So right there. Okay. US military raid kills ISIS leader Abu, I'm sorry, I can't pronounce it. I'm really bad at that, okay? They killed the ISIS leader, okay? But notice how I just said it, I said killed. That's the difference, okay? They killed is the past tense, okay? Essentially present tense is killed. So this is actually described, this is actually determined to be essentially, you know, active, okay, action, showing action, that this is something that you should be worried about right now, okay? And I cannot explain necessarily the logic of that. It's just the way it is, okay? And because it's tradition, this is what people expect, they go continue with it, okay? All right, does anybody have any questions on that so far? Okay, all right, so let's look at the difference between that headline and the lead here, okay? President Biden, I mean, this happened overnight too, so it's not even like present tense, not even close, okay? President Biden said Thursday that a U.S. Special Operations Forces counterterrorism mission overnight in northwestern Syria had killed the leader, excuse me, of the Islamic militant group, Islamic State militant group, okay? All right. So what the headline also does is the headline actually takes out words too. So what happens is there's this thing called compartmentalization that goes on too, okay? Because actually this goes back to the days when they had to like basically fit things onto actual paper, you know, and they actually had to fit it in with a certain length. But so now they actually do write longer headlines than they used to, okay? But oops. All right, so what you do is you take out words that essentially aren't necessary. And this is also important to know for the digital side of things too, because remember I mentioned about keywords and search terms. You want to make sure that the keywords and search terms stay in there, okay? But words like the and things like that, they go, okay? It's also like the way people like to read headlines. So even though this is probably would be a bit of a longer headline back in the days of the paper, when paper was important, okay? Because especially with this name and everything, it would be kind of hard to fit within the column, okay? All right. But I mean, they continue with the stuff. So they took out things that maybe like would have made this, you know, an actual real sentence, okay? All right, so one of the things they probably took out would be A. All right. U.S. military raid. The guy has killed ISIS leader. Okay. In Syria, okay? I mean, not a lot had to be taken out of this one, okay? And then also like the full name too. Of course, as I've said, people, President Biden actually is, you don't need to say President Joe Biden. Actually, that's just AP style, okay? The president, you would actually say in a sentence, President Biden has said, or something like that. And then actually, that's actually written in present tense too. You want to say basically what I said or said, okay? So what you see, they took out this, they took out this, they took out this, they got that, okay? So that's a full sentence. So you want to make sure that your lead, I actually bring this up because it happens every time. You want to make sure your lead is a full sentence, okay? It doesn't look like a headline, okay? Do you have any questions on that? And like I said, I mean, there actually wasn't really anything that needed to be taken out. It was, I mean, sometimes you might see something like, I mean, actually in this previous lead for the story, actually, you know, it was like counterterrorism mission was here, you know, I mean, that could have been in the headline, you know, but it wasn't, because that would make it way long, okay? And what they did was, instead of, they could have done something like, they put military raid, but they could have said, a US military raid as part of a counterterrorism mission has killed ISIS leader. That would have been like more substantive sentence and everything. But probably the most important thing to do is to make sure that there are words in here that will be something in a search term, okay? So counterterrorism, I mean, sometimes it's just a guess, okay? But what are people going to search for? They're going to probably search for military, because they know that's who involves, US, ISIS. They kept the name in there probably because people are going to be looking for the name, okay? I guess they had killed another ISIS leader, I guess under Trump, like a year or two ago or so. This was the guy who succeeded him, all right? Syria is another one, they're going to look for that, okay? And of course, Biden, okay? So they're going to make sure those things stay in there, okay? All right. Anybody have any questions on that? Okay. Fresh. Okay. Somebody have a question? I thought I heard something. Okay. So let's just like go over a story. Okay. Actually, here I could use this. Okay. Where I feel like, you know, this actually has like really good substance in it. But I mean, when you look at it, you can see it's like way long. Okay. I mean, just from far away, it's not very inviting. I mean, again, the idea being that I just want to read the first sentence and just see if I'm interested, you know? I'm just like a human, you know, I just want to know what it's about. Why should I bother? Why do I care? As I said, we should say, okay? Actually, this looks pretty small. Yusuf, is it Yusuf? Rashid, also known as, I can't pronounce that, is one of the most innovative, ambitious, upcoming rappers known in the underground. Okay, it's a little opinionated, but over the span of 2 years, from 20 to 22, he has reached 200,000 SoundCloud plays on all music combined. Okay, well, you know, actually, that's actually important information. But if I had just done that, you know, I might feel more compelled to read it. Okay. Another thing that actually I left out before is that, is that you really should make sure that, you know, there's attribution as much as possible. I mean, you don't have to overdo it with the attribution, but I'm assuming that she got this from him, so I haven't read the whole story. I mean, I haven't read the whole story yet, but I want to make sure that actually, like, you know, that this is actually sourced. And of course, the best way, if you don't know already, is to basically just say he said, she said, they said. Okay. All right. I probably would do something like, one way to do that is like, if you have a situation where like, you can't necessarily say he said or she said or they said, maybe you add a word so that it looks like it's not you saying it. Okay. So maybe you say something like, is considered one of the most innovative and ambitious upcoming rappers known in the underground. That essentially turns that into, you know, maybe a fact. Okay, the fact being that this is how people feel about him. Okay, all right, it's not an opinion anymore. Okay, all right. Okay, well, I mean, really, like sometimes I read these stories and I say, like, there's another separation right there, you know. And again, like maybe putting, you know, spaces between the graphs. I mean, another thing it does is, and this is actually not even a digital thing. Okay, when you actually break up things into individual paragraphs like this, it almost like gives them more importance, you know. It kind of like stands alone and says, look, I got an important point to make here. Okay. You know, so bang, bang, bang. You should read this, you know. You know, just it's not buried. Okay. If it's like buried in the middle of like a long paragraph, people might just skip over and not read it, you know. This is actually like interesting information. One of his highest songs reached 50,000 plays in a span of 10 months. While he's climbing the ladder in the industry, he still hasn't reached the pinnacle. I mean, we know that. His fans are anticipating this well-needed, and that's my own opinionated right there, and groundbreaking EP. His first EP released in July of 20 reached 10,000 Ks. So that's another problem. Okay. However, as the album continued to reach the rise in the SoundCloud algorithm, it suddenly vanished off the face of the internet. Okay. Yep. And there's your first person. Okay. So you don't need to tell me that you interviewed him. Okay. You need to basically just say what he said. Okay. You don't need to tell me. I see also another thing. I see a lot of, actually, I'm not saying I saw this in your papers, but I see over the years, I see a lot of people love to do things like, when asked about blah, 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 blah. Well, I discourage people writing when asked about the SoundCloud and blah, blah, blah. I mean, you don't need to phrase things necessarily when asked unless they say something outrageous, okay? It's a good thing to put something into context if they do something along the lines of like, have like a one-word answer to something, okay? Right? It was like this colorful picture for the Boston Red Sox a long time ago, right? And he was known for saying a lot of the like wacky things, okay? He's way before your time, and probably mine too. His name is Bill Lee. He's not David Ortiz, okay? So anyway, let's see. So anyway, he was known for like just spouting on everything, but he used to say things like, I think he used to just make up stuff. Somebody once asked him if he smoked pot. He said, I don't smoke pot. I put it on my cornflakes every day. You know, that's the kind of thing you would say, you know, because he knew it would get printed, right? So it was the World Series. It was a really exciting World Series against the Reds, the whole thing. And like they were asking all these different questions, right? And then like it said, and then I remember the paragraph said something along the lines of, when asked by 10 reporters what he felt about the World Series and some other question, blah, 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 Lee replied, tied. It was tied 1-1, 1 game to 1. So that's maybe a good example of when you use when asked, okay? Because it's really understood that the person was probably asked the question and they responded, okay? All right. It's kind of taking like a bit of a turn now. This is where like, I guess I would say this probably like with this story gets a little bit unfocused because I'm reading about all these great things that he's doing, but then he's disappointed, you know? So I'm kind of like, okay, well, what does that mean? You know? So, I mean, is this story about him doing well or not? Okay. And okay, now he's reading, this is obviously unfortunate. I felt that he was lost a part of himself, past his uncle, he gained something new. Okay, but actually, on the other hand, it actually like gave him, I guess, inspiration to keep going. Okay. Here's like one of those metaphors I was talking about. Okay. You know, I don't know. I mean, I know I feel sympathy and empathy for what he's going through, that whole thing, but you know, butterfly emerging from the chrysalis. You want to make sure that you're not really cringing, okay? So, you know, that's where like really metaphors can really kind of get a bit out of hand, I think, especially in, I mean, it's probably okay for like book writing and that sort of thing, but you know, it's something that's probably been said before, you know, so then it becomes a what? If it's something that's been said before, what do they call that? Cliche, yeah, okay. All right, so maybe like you just basically say during this creative period, I just want to know the substance, okay? I'm in a hurry, okay? I'm in a digital media world, all right? I'm reading off my phone on a train, okay? I want to know, what is he doing now? So okay, apparently he used this opportunity as to record new songs, okay? All right. But now when you look at it, you can see that it's actually like, don't you think it's like, I don't know, don't you think it's more inviting? You think? One sentence at a time, I gave you some interesting facts and tidbits about him. How many people could say they've done this? Anybody here have any SoundCloud uploads? No? Not you, Jack? No, I thought you did. Okay. Right. How about you, Ronnie? Do you have a? Yeah. Oh, do you have SoundCloud uploads? 50,000?
No, I
Okay. Just want to check. I have 2 million. No. Yeah, me. I actually I have this YouTube video that had a lot of views. Oh, why am I doing this? It was my son in like 2003. Is it on here? I could just see here. This is total gratuitousness. So what's that? No, it's not. I don't want to sign in and deal with that whole freaking two-step identification thing. Anyway, you know what? I'll just do it right here. Yeah, it's not that. Yeah, it could be that, right? Bad child. What's that? Because he actually was singing a bad song. Actually, it was I'm such a goofy. I don't know how my kids survived. You know, I always thought like one of the worst songs ever was a song by Lionel Richie called "Dancing on the Ceiling." It's a long time ago, but it was in 2003. I thought it was kind of funny. Maybe I was bored and tired. We actually like taught him that song, so he started singing it. Okay. Give me a second here, just to entertain myself. It's not coming up here either. I'm going to my library. Your videos. And I'm dealing with a very old computer here. There you go. Which there's like 10 zillion lectures on here. Probably like, I bet you it's like the first one. Because it's that old. I have my wedding on here. Oh, there it is. I titled it "My 2-year-old Son Singing the Worst Song Ever." This kid goes to Boston University now, by the way. I'm really embarrassing him right now. I apologize, John.
Shenzhen, do you like rice and beans? Like rice and beans?
This is something like 50,000 views or something.
Oh, sing a What a Feeling. Oh, what a feeling, dancing on the ceiling.
Oh, what a feeling.
He hates me for that. And you can understand why. Anyway. So let's see here. Actually, I think I have it on another channel. Anyway, whatever. So anyway. So that's that. Does anybody have anything, any kind of questions on that? So what I'm asking you to do again is just to write leads out of it, okay? And there's in the first section, there's a little bit of instruction here, but you just write the leads for 7. And the second section, there's 5. People have always found the last 5 easier, okay? Actually, those are actually written in like, those last 5 are actually written in more present tense because they're things that are actually happening.
First assignment, you show like all the paragraphs. You have too many. So I
Um,
was worried about hitting like 500.
oh, for the first one. No, I mean, I think that, well, you're worried about hitting the 500?
With like it being too long in length, but hitting the
Oh,
first
yeah.
round of the paragraphs is just space.
Yeah. Does it have words to it? I don't know.
We'll just have to link.
As length. Well, I'm not worried about that, just the words, I mean, I'm not asking people to actually like write, and I had somebody who wrote like really short each paragraph. I think it may have been in my other class, where they wrote like, Jack is a man. I think they were being sarcastic and gaming me or something, I don't know. It was like, Jack is a man. Jack lives at Rutgers. That was like the next paragraph. Let's not go too extreme, but but I mean, one of the questions I get a lot is, of course, how am I going to hit the 500 word limit when I'm writing about this one person, But as I've described it, basically, when you're actually writing the story, you're actually like, I think there's actually usually it comes out on average to me. There's three different things, at least three different things you could say about something, okay? Divided by transitions, okay? All right. So I'll keep going to you. Sal, you wrote about yourself, right? What was maybe the most unique thing about you? I don't remember. Let me ask him.
Oh yeah, you brought up, I think.
That's right. Okay, yeah. So the internship he has. So then you can think about how you could divide it into like who, what, when, why, when. Okay. So what's one of the first things I want to know about that internship? Maybe not you answered. Somebody else. What do you want to know about his internship? I mean, not a lot of people have internships, right? Yeah, you want to know where? Okay, that's exciting, right?
No.
Okay. That one, if I put a hole in it, I'm sorry. There's no offense. Yeah, Jack, your hand. What he does. I mean, sometimes you have these people who kind of like run the famous people, that sort of thing. A friend of mine in my hometown, he had an internship with the New York Giants, the NFL. So it was literally like a gopher thing, right? He ran like drinks for people and stuff like that, executives. But Super Bowl 25 or 4, I forget, the one where the Giants beat the Bills by a point, okay? 1991. He is actually on TV. If you ever like watch, I do it, but that Super Bowl is actually on YouTube, and I don't know if they have it there actually, but when you show the introductions of the Giants players, they show him going like this. So, and then every time we actually have Super Bowl parties over his house, and he has to show us that. So yeah, what does he do? I mean, sometimes you have something like that, but it's not like it's that. But maybe it's something along the lines of like, is it something that's busy, creative, takes up a lot of time, and talk about the whole idea of doing balancing course load and all that stuff. What's another question you might ask? I just kind of alluded to the course load. How's he able to do that? And then maybe you get into the where, what might involve a commute or whatever. So, yeah, there's probably more questions beyond that. So, doesn't enjoy it. So, all right. Maybe you have any additional questions about that? So we're starting off small in this class, then we'll get into like the videos and all that other stuff. Okay. All right. Just want to make sure we got this part nailed down. All right, thanks guys. We'll just send it there, and I appreciate it. And let me know if you have any questions. Okay.